Okay.
Hello and welcome to the All Well Show with me, Nick Bellinger, at the end of the garden in quite warm November-y, October-y, Halloween time in the UK today. I'm so delighted to say that I have managed to finally have my wish granted, which is to speak to someone from the wonderful continent of Africa. It's taken me 102 shows. It's unbelievable, but I have a wonderful guest for you, and I'm going to try and get her name right too. I'm here with Folake Odediran. Hopefully that
Very
was
well
close
done, Nick. Very well done.
I'm feeling very warm now. Wonderful to meet you anyway, and thank you so much for being on the show. It's always been really important for me to try to get around as much of the Sanofi world as possible, and I think am I right in thinking that I found you in Nigeria today? Is that right?
That's very correct, Nick, and thank you for having me on the show. It's a great pleasure. Thank you first for this considered invitation. I don't take it for granted. And yes, you're right. I'm particularly proud to be doing this recording from Nigeria. I'm just like 2 days in Nigeria. I got in over the weekend.
Okay.
I've been in the US for the past 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Where I've had the opportunity for a stretch assignment with the Dupixent team in the US. So you can't say I'm happy to be back home as well. Yeah, so if you hear some cough in the background, and because my ears are still echoing and all that, just accommodate that.
No problem at all. And could you tell everyone who doesn't know, what is it that you do for Sanofi?
Oh, okay. So firstly, my name is Folake Odediran. I'm currently the general manager and country lead for Nigeria, general manager, general medicines at Foundation, and country lead for Nigeria. Essentially, I lead Nigeria's general medicines operations, if you would, both from a financial vantage and a strategic point of view. I work with great people, and we go out every day to ensure that Sanofi medicines are available to the patients that we serve in Nigeria. We have the courage to work in a very challenging context to bring transformational medicines to improve people's lives. That's what I do in Nigeria. That's
amazing. Well, a wonderful explanation, and I'm already very much bought in. This is fantastic. I want to help too. But how have you found yourself in such a wonderful position? What's your journey been to find your way to running the whole of Nigeria for Sanofi?
Good, thank you. That's an interesting one, Nick, and anyone who knows me would tell you I always start with a word of gratitude, right? I'm a thankful girl. Okay. I'm a thankful girl. So this is a little over 2 decades within pharma. I started my career with AstraZeneca over 20 years ago, right? As a medical rep, as we call it in this climb, essentially an individual contributor. So I was with AstraZeneca for upwards of about 5 years and some months. And then I had the opportunity to move on to Pfizer as a brand manager then. And while I was with Pfizer, I had different roles of increasing responsibilities and increasing importance, right? And I moved from being a product manager to being a group product manager to being a marketing manager, if you would. That's from a technical vantage. But beyond that, I also had opportunity to lead individuals, as we call it, manager of people, and then to become manager of managers. Because I recall when I became marketing manager, I had product managers. Manager of people, I think I would still say, because product managers did not have reps under them. And it was still at Pfizer that I had my first opportunity at what we call a metrics organization, right? Because I was reporting outside Nigeria. I was reporting into the Middle East, into Dubai. So I had responsibility for Nigeria and Ghana at that time in Pfizer. Exposure to business development, commercial operations, of course, marketing in all its form, and some degree of strategic leadership. I was with Pfizer for almost 8 years, right? And that journey took me from, if I'm not mistaken, from 2007 to about 2014. Okay. And then I left Pfizer for Sanofi. I joined Sanofi in 2014, specifically. So I've been with Sanofi for 8 years now. 8 years this month. 8 years this month, today being the last day in October. And I joined Sanofi as franchise head, as we used to call it then, franchise head for what we call ethical franchise or Sanofi specialty care. Now, by specialty care, I'm not referring to our current day specialty care. Right. I mean Clexane, because then it used to be described as specialty care in our client, right? So I joined Sanofi as franchise head for that division of the business. And 6 months on that journey, there was a reorganization within the within Sanofi, not just locally at our region. And I was rechristened, if you would, to be what we call a business unit head. Okay. And I served in that capacity for another 3 years. And I had the opportunity to become GM. So how did we get on the GM journey? A lot of people have always wondered. Wow. I recall we had a regional visit, and we had the head of Africa come around then, John Ferris. And I guess I have been part of the talent pool. I mean, at Sanofi, you are given opportunities to grow and opportunity to develop yourselves, but it's not as if people tell you are a talent, right? But I recall we had this visit, and my manager back then, the then GM of Nigeria, told me, oh, by the way, his boss was going to be around, and his boss had requested to meet with me on a one-on-one basis. Now, I have had opportunity to meet with senior leaders in Pfizer, so I wasn't really new to that process, but of course, I prepared for it adequately, and I was very happy. For me, it was just an opportunity to meet my boss's boss. But when we met with me, after we got the introductions on the way, he's an Englishman, and his name is John Ferris. I think he's the current head of global health. And he just went straight to say, you know what, I'm beginning to look at possibility of succeeding the current GM, because he will be leaving soon. And I'm trying to see if we can find a local, because before then, Sanofi has always brought in an expert. Oh, I see. To the market. So I was the first local, if you will. Oh, that's amazing. To come and a woman to add that. Wow. So he said they were beginning to see if they can find a local. And of course, it's not going to be an automatic thing, but he wanted to know if this was in line with my aspirations or if it was something I had thought about. Now, for me, this was big, right? Yes, I had big dreams, but probably I wasn't looking at being a GM in the short time like that. I'd always thought at some point we would get there. So I told him how very excited I was about the opportunity of being part of the process. And he told me, this is no guarantee. You will go through a process, and if you do well, you will not be denied. But if you don't, otherwise, there will be other candidates that will be considered as well. And he wanted to know what I felt about that. So I said, oh, I'm more than happy to do this. And then we went through a process. It was a very thorough process. We had psychometric analysis that I think that was conducted by the HR then from France. And of course, I had 2 interviews. In fact, one of the interviews, I had to travel to Paris to meet both the hiring manager and the HR for Africa back then. And of course, I also had some virtual engagements and all that. It took 3 months, right? And voila, they came back one day, and we had a phone call, and I was told, hey, I'm more than happy to offer you the general management opportunity about Nigeria. How do you feel? Honestly, if you ask me at that moment, I still don't know how we got here. So really, but that is it, right? I think for me, maybe what I would like to add to that is that I think Sanofi is one organization that is an equal opportunity provider. Maybe what will be critical also is for individuals to take ownership of their development, right? I've always been one to be big on my development. Across my entire journey, I've always been very particular about my development. I think it's important that we know what we want and we aspire towards it. I think it's important to build credibility. It's not enough to be competent, right? And to have capabilities to rise to senior leadership. I think it's important that we're credible enough that senior leadership can feel that we can be entrusted with higher things. Because I think at some point, it's no longer how technical you are, but whether you show those abilities to take on higher responsibility. So Sanofi has given me this opportunity. It's 5 years already on this journey. And by the way, just so you know, Nick, it was 2 countries. I was saddled with the responsibility of managing both Nigeria and Ghana. And with the local team, I think there's a proof of concept that locals can also do it. And I think we've done our best in the 5 years. So that's been it. And it's been one learning journey after the other. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to serve.
Wow. That is incredible. What an amazing journey. Thank you so much. And I just wonder, well, for a start, I completely understand why you got the opportunity, because you've got such an amazing, rich experience. And when you're, I imagine you're such an inspiration to others, because what you've shown is that you don't just go up one ladder. You have to move side to side, up and down, left and right, different companies to get that rich experience, to be able to be credible, to use your word, to feel like you kind of can lead a country, which is just incredible. So thank you so much. And
thank you.
I wonder if we could just go back just one little step further, because I also wonder, how did you find yourself, and why did you want to become a rep right back in the beginning? What led you to start the journey? I'd love to know that too.
Excuse me.
It's okay.
Whoa. Now that is one whoa. I have opportunity to speak at different forums, and only few people get to ask me that question. But that is one question that I truly think it's brilliant, and that really, really takes it back to the root. Why did I want to become a rep? I didn't know what I want to become.
Okay.
I think it's important sometimes to say that clarity reveals itself in momentum. Sometimes you just don't know. Some of the times it could take your mentors, or it could take people who see you to tell you what you're good at. But I know that I love to talk. And every opportunity that I had to talk, I gave it my best, right? So when I graduated as a pharmacist from the local university here in Nigeria.
Okay.
And part of our training program in Nigeria, we have what we call internship. It's a 1-year mandatory program where it's part of your training, right? So it's either you are within a hospital setting or you're within a local pharmacy outlet setting, but they want you to understand the various aspects of pharmacy practice. So I had the opportunity to work within a hospital system, but I also wanted to experience the retail experience, right? To know what it means to dispense. So I was at this retail outlet, had left school, and I love to counsel. I love to pass on the little that I know. So I found out that people usually engage with patients, but they don't want to commit the time. You see, when it comes to customer engagement, it's about the experience that we create. Sometimes not even about the product that we sell. No. Well, that's what I believe fundamentally. So when I was having those engagement with patients, I was always expressing myself. I would tell them what they can take with their medications and what they shouldn't take. I mean, I was practically like a counselor. Nice. Unknown to me, it expanded the scope of that particular pharmacy outlet. The sales had jumped up, and they had extended their closing time by 2 hours.
Wow.
So it's a very interesting story. So the owner of the pharmacy outlet thought this was very intriguing, and he was at a national conference where he met an old schoolmate of his who happened to be the MD of AstraZeneca back then. Okay. And he was telling this old schoolmate of his that he has this sharp young lady who has totally revolutionized how they engage customers. And because of her, he's had to extend his opening hours by 2 hours. And how he's so proud. And the friend told him, oh, really? By the way, we're looking for reps. Remember then the operations of AstraZeneca in Nigeria was small. And the guy said, we're looking for medical reps. I mean, that looks like the kind of people we're looking for. Would you like to give her my card? And the guy said, there's no way I'm going to let go of that young girl. I just want to know about this amazing lady. But you see, I mean, sometimes I think the universe also conspires to help us, especially when we give our best. What the owner of this pharmacy shop did, he didn't tell me about this situation, but he told one of the person I was working with, the superintendent pharmacist, to say, by the way, I had an encounter today. I spoke to a friend of mine about Folake, and he was so impressed he was going to take her from me, but I said no. The guy even offered me his card, but there's no way I'm going to let Folake go. But when that man left the shop, that coworker called me and said, you are young. You've got some gifting, and we think really beyond this current experience, there is more. I think you should be a rep. Someone is already speaking for you. Why don't you apply in this company? And I'm like, apply. I don't even know how you go about it, because I was straight from school and I was really green. I didn't really know how to go about it. But Nick, this was how it began, right? I was able to put in my CV. I was invited for an interview and I nailed it. It was my first attempt at looking for a role, and that was it. And maybe for me, really, there's something to pick from there. Really, sometimes the way I was brought up to value hard work, and I was brought up to interpret every opportunity as a great one, right? So I don't choose amongst opportunities. I don't, because you never know which of the opportunities is gonna push you out there. So for me, it was a locum experience. It was a small pharmacy outlet. They were paying me practically nothing, but I had opportunity to engage and create great experience, and I did. But by doing that, I built some credibility, enough for someone to speak about me, and that person happened to speak about me to someone who needed someone like me, and that was it. So I think it's important what we do with our opportunities, because you never know. Sometimes we're jacketed and we think some things will happen only in a particular way. The world is too big for you to narrow yourselves. And I think freedom starts in our mind. So that's how we got here. I got that job. It was my first job ever at AstraZeneca. I was with them for, like I said, upward of 5 years. And when I moved to Pfizer, it was also a rep who felt intimidated by my prowess had reportedly written my name in her reports to her manager, saying she was not selling because a particular rep was too good. And the manager said, well, we need to poach this rep who is too good if you cannot sell. And this company invited me over and said, we don't even want to make you a rep. We want you to become product manager for our cardiovascular ranges. That was how I moved from AstraZeneca to Pfizer. So again, it's an interesting one. Maybe it's not, maybe this is not the typical way everybody's journey is, but again, that is what makes us different, right? We all have different stories. So, but this is how we got here, Nick. I didn't know I was going to be a rep, but I think I was wired for it. But I did what I had to do, and someone else saw what I could do, and someone gave a narrative about what I could do, and that narrative created the opportunity. So someone is watching. And we're always leaking information. We're always leaking information. Whether you choose to smile or not, whether you choose to be respectful or not. I mean, you needn't say anything, but we're always leaking information, and you never know who is watching.
Okay, so this is amazing. I've got so many things I want to ask you, but I guess there's two questions. But the first one is, where does this fire come from? Like, you are just full of life, energy, like light. You're just kind of, you're a force of nature, and it's amazing. And I can see why your journey has been how it's been, because people can't ignore you, can they? They just get swept up in how you are. It's such an amazing thing. So where does this come from? Have you always been this kind of passionate?
Thank you so much. You're really digging deep. Thank you so much. It's a mix of things, right? But maybe you heard me when I said I was brought up, I was raised, right? So first, I think there is an innate gifting. I'm really passionate, right? I'm very intense, if you would, especially if I believe in a cause. But I was also raised by a dear old woman. I was raised by my maternal grandmother. I grew up with my maternal grandmother, and I was raised with values. I was raised to value fairness. I was raised to value hard work. I was raised to value equity, right? And I was raised to value the potential of the human man. Probably that's also why I'm a student of leadership. So I think some of this thing is partly the way I was raised, my giftings, if you would, and even my faith. I think I must have the courage to speak about that too.
Yeah, please.
Right. I do believe that human beings are unique, and we all have something that we bring, and every opportunity that I have, I just want to pass a bit of what I think I have. And I'm always happy to learn from what others bring. But maybe also reflectively, if I look at it from the other angle, my life is full, right? So we've had quite some tragedies in my family, a lot of it. My mom is late. I've lost 2 siblings. So I see life differently, really. I see life from the viewpoint of someone who has learned to hold and have learned to let go, right? I see life from the viewpoint of someone who is coming from an underserved and underrepresented community, if you look at what Africa is in a way, but who has also had so much opportunity also. If I look at my career journey, but also other things that I've been blessed with, I think this is what drives my passion. I just want to remind someone, and I hope that there's someone that's listening to this podcast. I just want to say that you are enough and you're adequate, and you don't need more. That just you, just as you are, it's okay, right? We want to be everything to everyone, but sometimes we are not called for everyone, right? But there's an audience for you. You just need to realize that you need to learn to use your voice. You need to stretch out of your comfort zone. You need to be comfortable being out of the familiar, because we don't grow when we're in the familiar. So it's a whole lot of things that is responsible for who I am, but I'm grateful really for my journey. It has not always all been good. I've had difficult times as well, but I've also learned to honor my struggle. I don't dismiss it, and I don't look for exemptions from my struggle, because that's another thing, because you will learn. So my resilience has been born out of the things I've been through. The tears I've shed, the pain I've known, they're responsible for the woman that you see, right? It's a long way. It's been a long way coming here, but I'm grateful for every bit of that journey.
Thank you so much. And back to the point that you made about how you don't grow, when you're not kind of trying new things and struggling for new things, and that maybe leads us on to kind of what kind of led you to be in America for the last 3 months, and how was that for you, and how have you managed to kind of look after yourself during this time?
It was tough. This is frankly speaking, it was tough, right? We speak about stretch, one of the play to win behaviors. We speak about it's very easy for leaders to ask others to go out of their comfort zones. It was tough stretching, but it is one experience I wouldn't trade for a lifetime. It was worth it, right? It was enriching. So how did this experience, how did I get about this? Honestly, I don't know, but I'll be very honest. About 2 years ago, I applied for a role that was maybe a bit out of my reach, at least somehow. It was a senior role, I guess, in the US. But I had applied because I thought I had met the criteria for the role. When I went for the process, obviously the lack of US experience was very critical.
Okay.
And I did not get the opportunity, but I came out with a perspective and an action plan. The action plan was get US experience. And my reason was just one, right? I wanted to continue to stay within the industry.
Yep.
And I could see that not having a US experience was a barrier. And I was raised not to take barriers, right? So I told myself, we're going to get a US experience. I don't know how it's going to come. And so I started engaging. I started looking for that experience. It wasn't easy, I must say. And maybe this is where I really hope that the action plan clearly was to get a US experience. Because for me, the way I understood it was like a mechanic's toolkit. Apparently, there was a tool that was missing from my kits, and I needed to add it, and that tool was US experience. Because sometimes development it needs to be matched to our individual needs, right? We can leverage learnings, we can leverage organizational development, but the question is, what is that thing that you are missing as a leader or as an aspiring individual? You need to know exactly what are your aspirations and what is that development. So my aspiration was to go to a more challenging context. My aspiration was to take on higher responsibility outside of Africa. That was the aspiration, right? And when I attempted, I met with a barrier. What was the barrier? Oh, you need a US experience to take on a global role.
Yeah.
And I said, then I'm going to get a US experience. So I engaged a few senior leaders, but it was not so much for them to get me into US. It was more around, this is my aspirations. How do I go about it? But in the course of that engagement, I was offered US, let me put it that way. And I mean, this is honest speaking. I was in a Zoom meeting and I was told, hey, how about if we give you a 3-month experience just for you to see this, and then we can see what comes out outside that.
Nice.
And that was it. And I spoke with my manager to say, this is the offering I've got. What do you think? My manager said, I'm more than happy to support you. Go for it. So first, I'm grateful. And I think for the senior leader that offered me this opportunity in the US. And I'm also grateful to my manager for the cooperation, and also to my team for releasing me for the period for which I was away. So this was how this opportunity came. It was a stretch, Nick. It took me. I was out of my comfort zone. It was a lesson in humility. I went from being the most important person in the room or in the office to probably the least recognized. And I mean that, right? Because when you're a GM to some degree, and a GM in a geography, you're really important and you're recognized. And then I went to US where there are several GMs and so many senior leaders, and nobody did even know who you were or who I was, right? And it was a tough place to be in. I was living out of the bag for 3 months, eating out of the microwave for 3 months. I miss the sense of community that we had in Africa. I miss the sense of camaraderie that happens in the office every day. The team dynamics that I had with my team. I miss home. It was tough. And on top of that, I was asked to develop a commercial strategy for a marker or a diagnostic marker in asthma for the US market. Now, this was a market I didn't know, and I was asked to develop a strategy for it. That was tough. So I was dealing with new people, new environment, and I was given a tough assignment. But I cracked it all, right? I made new friends. I expanded my network. And when I presented my project, I got a lot of positive nod of approval. I think the senior leadership of Dupix and the team I work with were very proud of the work that I did. So really, incredible opportunity, incredible learnings, but it was tough, but it was worth it.
That is incredible. And so with all of this in mind, how do you kind of keep yourself healthy? Like, how do you stay on top of your well-being when you're working this hard, you're on the other side of the world and everything's happening? How do you stay on top of all this?
I think probably this will be one of the most important segments of this conversation for me. I am tired. My voice is cracked, right? Like I told you, I got back just over the weekend. I've not been on vacation this year, and this is not good, but it's good to put it out there. And that's because the opportunity came just about summer, and I didn't want to take chances, so I took it on. I'm hoping to start my vacation from today. I've applied on Workday, and I'm sure my boss will release me. So how do I keep it together? Maybe contextually, with regards to the US, I really need to rest. I'm going to be off work for a while. I'm not traveling. I need to do a lot of sleeping, right? I love to sleep. That's how I really recharge and all that. But while I was in US and generally in my life, wellness for me starts with my mind. Once my thought process is such that I'm taking things one at a time, once I'm able not to pressure myself, because sometimes I think for me, wellness starts with how much you take on. So I usually choose my battles. I really do. I love people. I forgive quickly. I really do. I was brought up to forgive quickly. I move on quickly. I don't hold on to things, right? And I am a courageous person when it comes to conversations. When I have reasons to feel I've not been treated well, I focus on matters headlong. And I learned that in Pfizer. I remember we had a training on crucial conversation. Colleagues to speak with, even superiors to say, is it me or do I have reason to believe I'm being treated this way? So this is the way for me wellness work. It starts with my mind. But I also take my weekends very seriously. So you can call me boring if you like, but I honestly recharge. I am very careful with what I do over the weekends, and I'm very careful with people who encroach on my time weekend. It's like my me time. I actually try to recharge every part of my body, my system, my soul, and all that. I'm a spiritual person, right? So church is a big part of my weekend, spiritual activity. Rest is a big part of my read. And then I read a lot. I am a voracious reader. I read good books. And I think for me also it's part of my wellness. I have some basic exercises. I'm not your marathon runner, right? But I work. Back at home in Nigeria, I put in at least 40 minutes work every day.
Okay.
When I went to the US, I kind of lost that. Incidentally, where I was, Cambridge in Boston, I had great opportunity to do that. But you see, I was coping with the weather and all that. It wasn't exactly easy. Maybe I had an excuse. So I didn't do much of that. But in this 1 week, I'm sure I'm going to find my routine again. These are some of the ways I try that. Some of the ways I approach wellness, Nick. I try to eat well. I'm not a foodie per se, but
Okay.
I'm careful what I really eat. And probably that explains why I got away from the US and I'm still not big, right? I was careful. I was careful what I took in, yes.
Yes, I completely understand. And back to the mention of books, when it comes to kind of like mental health and well-being, is there a book that you could recommend to the people watching us today?
So it depends on their areas of interest, right? So it depends. I have some people that I follow, right? So it depends on if it is something they're interested in. I read Brendan Burchard, for those who know him. It's I don't know, I don't want to call it motivation. I think he speaks about engagement and about energy. Okay. Brendan. Sinek, I've read a few of Simon Sinek's book. Sure. Jack Welch, for those who love Jack Welch. Adam Grant is a psychologist. He speaks about organization. I really love Adam Grant. I love his podcast.
Yeah.
Yes, a podcast. I listen to his, I think there's a lady, is it Brené Brown? Yeah. I think that's her, Brené Brown, for those who know her. So again, it depends on whether what the subject matter area is. But essentially, I read books around leadership, organizational development. I'm big about organizational development. I read around culture as well. And that explains where you see between Jack Welch, you see organizational development. When you see Adam Grant, it's about organizational psychology. When you look at Brendan Burchard, he speaks about highly effective people, effectiveness, right? That's what Brendan Burchard. And then Brené Brown speaks on leadership. So really it depends on what they're looking for. But those are some of the things they could pick up. There are so many books, Thinking Fast and Slow. I'm trying to remember the guy that wrote it now. Yeah, Nick. So again, for me, there are several, but again, people have to find what works for them. That's a recent piece I picked from the US now, talking about when we're in transitions. I've not read it, but it's just one of the paperback I got. So
fantastic. Well, I can see that. You strike me as someone that can absorb all of this and then turn it into action.
Yes, I'm very practical. I was raised with a mindset of focus. So if it is worth pursuing, and if I have to give it my time, then it has to be worth reflecting on, right? I would say that if a course is worth pursuing, then it's important you give it your time. And if you must give it your time, then you should be able to reflect on what you get from it. So whether it's a podcast, whether it's a book, I'm not big on movies, but I do watch a few. But if you have to give, if it's worth pursuing, then you should give it your. I mean, you should. If you think this is important enough, and you want to commit like 2 hours to it or 3 hours, do you think you should waste those 3 hours? No. If I have to give 7 days of my life to a book, then there has to be something I'm getting out of it. And probably that determines the kind of authors that I choose. So I'm very particular. I read a lot, but I don't read junks, right? I'm very selective kind of things that I read. And I take them seriously. I also read a lot of Christian books.
Okay, well. Fantastic. Excellent. Yes, and your faith seems to be thread throughout, kind of, which is
somehow yes, because there is an inner strength that drives me, and that comes from my faith. So I listen. I have a couple of great people that I listen to, and TD Jakes would be one of those, right? And amongst other people. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And I guess finally, you're the global EIG lead for culture and origins, aren't you, as well? It's unbelievable. How do you fit all of this in? But I wondered, what this work gives. What does that bring to you? Just to kind of say, like, if you're going to invest your time, what are you going to get back? What are you getting back from being part of a global EIG?
So I think a lot, I dare say, and I think first, the network itself, right? I think that is something that that is really, really big. But I think maybe that's not even, I think the bigger one for me will be how I'm becoming. That's it. what being the global lead for culture and origin is doing to me. So I'm learning all over again, and I'm unlearning, right? I'm seeing through the eyes of others. I'm sitting in meetings where probably ordinarily I would never say that. I'll give you an example. Sanofi has constituted a global advisory board for diversity, equity, and inclusion. That board sits the CEO, our global head of human resource, and a few other executive ESCOM members, and some external thought leaders. And of course, our chief experience officer, Raj, that board, he sits on that board. And there is a slot for one employee to sit on that board on a rotational basis amongst the ERG. I happen to be the first person ever to sit on that board. So if you ask me what the global ERG is bringing, is a lot. First, opportunity to meet with the various ERG in different countries and learn and see from their eyes, learning about different origins, different cultures, but also different experiences, right? What people are going through and how collectively we can champion a cause for a better Sanofi. And then having opportunity to put together all these learnings and be a voice for the collective with senior leadership, helping me to understand what obtains when you sit with top executives, I think is a big learning for me, really. So the exposure, the learnings, the networking, but also the humble opportunity to influence. Like I told you, I've always wanted to inspire, right? Yeah. To influence change in my own way, to be a voice for the voiceless, right? To be able to advocate for underrepresentation, to be able to encourage people of all groups. And I'm not talking Blacks alone, people of all groups, to have pride, to have confidence and boldness, and to be comfortable with who they are, but also with the contributions that they bring to the business. I think that itself is a huge benefit. And I'm more than delighted to serve in this regard. Just to serve, right? To be able to say, hey guys, do you have concerns? Tell us about it, we'll help you channel it, and vice versa. And when leadership also is doing something beautiful, as Sanofi is doing, to be able to be a voice for our leadership to say, guys, this is what Sanofi is doing, and leverage it. I think for me, really, this is one of the things. It's allowing me to be me. I love to serve. I love to find myself in opportunity. I love opportunities that allows me to serve. It's interesting. It's a kind of a paradox, right? So people think it's a big deal. They see me as a leader, but really it's servanthood at the end of the day. It's just service, and it's just a privilege to serve. So it's in line with my passion. I am very cultural. I was raised with rich cultural value. I am African, right? I am Nigerian, and proudly so. And it's a big honor to serve as the global lead for culture and origin for Sanofi. And being a woman, I mean, the intersectionality between culture and gender, what more can I ask for?
You're right at the crossroads.
It's amazing.
Well, thank you so much for being with me today. And your grandmother must be so proud of you. And, you know, you said the only thing you want today was to inspire. And I haven't even got words to say what this half an hour has been like, because I've never written so many notes. Every time you speak, it feels like it should be on a wall. Like there are some things that you said that just the words that you said that made it hard for me to listen afterwards, because it was so beautiful. I've never heard it before, which is clarity reveals itself in momentum. And that nearly threw me off my chair. That's amazing. But thank you so much for joining the show today. I have a feeling that this won't be the last that I see of you, because you're a force of nature that's going to fly across Sanofi and do some amazing things. And I'm so glad to have kind of had some time before you take off into the atmosphere. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you more. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the honor. Thank you. Have a good day.
You're so welcome.